Hi hustlers. Well, I want to tell the story of Nokia, very popular brand. When Nokia had the great fall, the CEO said something. He said, "We did everything right, but somehow, we still failed." Well, as a hustler, have you ever tried something new? Have you ever tried a business venture, an idea, and you work day and night? You played by the books. You did everything right, and at the end of the day, you discovered that you still failed. What could have gone wrong? Well, that's the story of Nokia, and I'm going to be telling you this story today. We didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. That statement is widely attributed to Nokia CEO Stephen Elop. This statement still echoes across boardroom as a precautionary quote today, and whether he actually said it or not, it captures the tragedy perfectly of a once booming company, a company that once ruled the world of mobile phones. All of a sudden, it collapsed overnight. Before I go on with this story, let me take you back to the early 2000s. Yeah, Nokia wasn't just a phone brand in the early 2000s, it was the phone industry itself. So by the year 2027, Nokia had controlled nearly 50% of the global mobile market. That means one in every two phones sold worldwide was Nokia phone. That was mad. So from the iconic 3310 to the stylish N series, Nokia phones were known for durability, long battery life, and reliability. I remember when most times I will mistakenly wash my phone inside my pocket, but once I get back, sun dry it for some minutes, put the battery, and before you know, your phone is still working. Your phone can't even fall from five-story building and it's still working perfectly well. You can't compare that with the phones of today. You can never try that because the phones of today are so fragile. And understand the business model they are operating on. But you see, the business model was based on standard, was based on durability, but you don't have that today. So because of these early qualities that the Nokia phone had, it dominated the phone industry. But dominance is dangerous because when you are on the top, it is easy to believe the world will wait for you. Just like life, business doesn't work the way we plan. It doesn't work that way. Then came the year 2007. Apple unveiled the iPhone. Steve Jobs did a great job, and it was not just a phone. That device was a supercomputer in your pocket. So soon afterward, Google followed with Android, creating an open ecosystem where developers could just build app freely. Meanwhile, by this time, Nokia clung to its old operating system known as Symbian. I guess you still remember the popular Symbian model. At this point, Symbian powered hundreds of millions of phones worldwide, but it was outdated, it was clunky, and no match for the smooth touch interface of the iOS or the flexibility of the Android phones. So, guys, I want you to reflect on this because this is the first big lesson from this Nokia story that I'm telling you today. Strength in the past can become weakness in the future. Because the reason I say this is because Nokia were busy executing flawlessly on the wrong playbook. Not that they were not doing it right, they were doing it right, but they were doing it on the wrong playbook. So by the year 2008, Nokia's profit were already sliding down nearly 30% in one quarter. So there was an internal chaos. A lot of people resigned. There was an internal chaos going on. Different teams fought over whether to back the Symbian model or the Migo or something else entirely. So instead of one clear vision, Nokia had three half-baked strategies. They were not focused. You can, if you chase three rabbits, you end up losing all. That was it. But it seems the management of Nokia had no clear-cut strategy. You see, Nokia didn't just miss the smartphone wave. They had opportunity to lead it. They had the clear-cut opportunity to lead it, but they slacked and they let that opportunity slip away. So this is one way Nokia missed it. Most people don't know that back in the year 2010, Nokia was secretly working on something really revolutionary. It was the MiGo project. It was a Linux-based smartphone operating system. It was modern, it was smooth, and it was built for touchscreens. So the Nokia N9 was powered by MiGo, which was later launched in 2011. At first, tech reviewers love it. Some even call it a better experience than the first Android phones. But here's the tragedy. Nokia killed it. Yeah, Nokia killed MiGo before it even had a chance to hit the market. And why? It was because Elop had, as a CEO, Elop had already tied Nokia's future to Microsoft Windows Phone. The N9 was released in only a handful of markets, so naturally developers abandoned it, knowing Nokia had no long-term plans for the phone. So this is a painful lesson because sometimes failure isn't because your product is bad, it is because your company no longer believes in its vision. As one tech journalist said at the time, MiGo didn't fail, Nokia gave up. So guys, there were several other missed innovations that we can't even go into. Okay, take for instance, the touchscreen prototype. Did you know that Nokia engineers had been working on the touchscreen phone for years before even the iPhone? But management killed it, thinking customers wanted buttons instead of touch screens. Even when it came out, when you talk about app stores, it was a great mistake also. Apple launched its app store in, I think, 2008. So by 2009, Nokia had its own app store called the OV store, if you remember, but it was clunky, it was inconsistent, and it lacked developer support due to lack of vision or visionary leadership. Nokia did not see apps as the future in a world where apps was like the next big thing. These guys were just like, oh, apps won't be the future. So that single mistake cost them everything. So in the year 2005, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, let me check it up. 2005, Nokia released a device called the 77 Internet Tablet. It looked like a mini iPad, so years before the iPad, but leadership did not commit to the idea, treating it as a side project. That was how that opportunity once more was wasted. How about camera dominance? Did you know that Nokia was the very first company that pioneered incredible camera tech? If you remember the Nokia 808, yeah, 808 PureView that was released in 2012, which had a 41 megapixel sensor. It was years ahead of its time, but because of lack of an eye for the future, it was still paired with the Symbian operating system. So the phone went nowhere. So as one Nokia engineer later admitted, he said, we had the technology, we just didn't have the courage. So it was so hustlers should understand that innovation is useless if leadership doesn't have the vision or the courage to back it up. So great ideas actually dies in the hands of weak people, weak management, weak founders. So I also believe another hidden reason behind Nokia's fall was leadership chaos. See, in the year 2006, you had Oli Pekka. He became the CEO. He struggled to adapt to Nokia's culture, and under his watch, Apple and Android rose. So in 2010, you have Steven Elop who made that famous statement. It was even under his watch that Microsoft took over. His infamous burning platform memo admitted Nokia was actually losing ground. Well, it was something everyone knew at the time. But his fix was controversial. He abandoned Nokia's internal project like MiGo, which I said earlier, and bet the company's future on Microsoft. So internally, many employees felt betrayed. They called Elop a Trojan horse because they felt he was sent by Microsoft to weaken the company, which was already struggling on life support. So whether or not that's true, the damage was real. Because when leadership keeps changing, so does the strategy of a company. And when the vision keeps shifting, because each management comes with its own vision. So when the mission and vision keeps shifting, the team loses faith. So as management guru Peter Drucker once said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So when you look at it, you realize that Nokia didn't just lose to Apple or Google. Nokia lost to itself. So as I was saying, by 2010, Steven Elop stepped in and was running the company, the show. He was trying to use Microsoft as a bailout. Maybe to him, he saw Microsoft as a ship that's going to save him. But while Nokia and Microsoft were busy negotiating, Apple and Android were already springing ahead. Developers ignored Windows. Consumers were not interested in Windows anymore. And by 2018, Nokia's smartphone market share had totally collapsed to 5%. And in 2014, the unthinkable happened. Nokia, which was once worth over, I think, $300 billion, once the pride of Finland, sold its handset division to Microsoft for just $7.2 billion. Microsoft later wrote off the entire deal as a loss. So what actually went wrong? It wasn't that Nokia did nothing wrong. They built a great hardware company. They had loyal customers across the world, but in business, the rules can change overnight. Nokia wasn't competing against Motorola or BlackBerry anymore. They were competing against an ecosystem. I'm talking about the likes of iOS and Android. And you know what? In tech, when you are competing, not even in tech, in business, when you are competing against an ecosystem will always beat hardware, always. So guys, there are so many ways culture eats strategy. So your strategy must be your culture. So Nokia's bureaucratic culture slowed decision making and in a way silence innovation. Also, you must learn that in the hustle, the principles remain the same, which is adapt or die. So Nokia executed perfectly on an outdated vision. That's how I see it, and I believe a lot of us see it the same way. So, and also, leadership requires clarity because constant CEO changes, shifting of strategies, and internal politics actually drain the momentum of Nokia. That's why the line, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost, feels so haunting because Nokia is a reminder that in business, doing everything right doesn't matter if the world has already moved on. So, as a hustler, ask yourself, are you building for the world as it is today or for the world as it will be tomorrow? Because even giants can fall if they forget that hard truth. So these are timeless lessons for hustlers from the story of Nokia, the great fall of Nokia. Now let's pull the hustle wisdom out of this story, as I said. As a whole, number one, as a hustler trying to see the light of the day, don't ever get drunk on success. Because at their peak, Nokia believed they were untouchable. But success blinds you. As the saying goes, when you stop learning, you stop growing and you start dying. And that's the truth. That's what happened to Nokia. Number two, you need to move fast, even if you break things. Nokia's committees slowed everything down. Apple already had the App Store by the time Nokia responded. It was just too late. So in business, speed beats size at any given time. Speed beats size at any given time. So number three, you need to back your best idea, push your best idea to the forefront with all your might and with all your strength. I mean this because look at it. Nokia had Migo, they had the internet tablet, they have POView cameras. This could have kept the Nokia brand in the game, but they lacked one thing, they lacked conviction on their own idea. As Steve Jobs would say, innovation is saying no to 1,000 things, but you must also have the guts to say yes to the right thing. Then number four, you need to be aware of the comfort zone. Symbian was profitable, so Nokia couldn't let go. But the future doesn't care about your comfort. That's the funny thing about business. As Jeff Bezos would say, your margin in business. Your margin in business is your opportunity. So when you hear that haunting line, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. Remember, it wasn't a lack of hard work. It wasn't a lack of talent. It was a lack of vision. It was a lack of courage, very important. And it was a lack of speed. And that's the ultimate lesson for us in business and in life. You can do everything right according to yesterday's rule and still lose tomorrow's war. That's just a fact and funny thing about the hustle and the grind. So ask yourself today, are you playing the game everyone else is already leaving behind? Or are you building for the future? Even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels risky, even if it feels crazy, because the future waits for no one, not even a giant like Nokia.